and welcome to my channel. I am Leo Vidal, and what we have here today is the Bergeon 5356 mainspring winders. As you can see, they come in a wooden box. I found that box is somewhat lightweight. If you drop the box, it's probably going to get damaged, but the contents of the box will be fine. I don't think it would fall apart, but there will be some damage. This is definitely not hardwood. Saying that, I have had them for some time and it's perfectly straight. There is no wobble, nothing warped, it's absolutely fine. The information you get here is the outer diameter of the barrel drum. For example, number 7, the outer diameter of the drum is 10.8 millimeters. Enough of the box now. You want to see the goodies inside, don't you? Wow, it never fails to impress me. Just look at it. It looks the business. It's like opening a jewelry box, man's jewelry box. I'm going to show you how to use them. 4 different options if the fit is not ideal. I'll also put up a spreadsheet in this video with Arbour diameters for every crank, inner and outer diameter of the drums and other measurements. But firstly, let's have a look at the winders themselves. The Q-tip here is to give you an idea of the size of the winders. We get 2 winder handles. The blue one is the left-hand mainspring winder handle, and the one without a collar is the right-hand winder. It would have been nice to have a red stripe here to match the cranks. Does it matter? Not really, but the devil is in the detail. It's only a tool, I know. We also get 17 arbors in blue and 17 arbors in red. That's 34 arbors in total. We also get 17 drums. When I lift the red crank, you can see the barrel drum below, and when I lift the blue one, you can see that there is no drum. If you need to use one of the left-hand arbors, the blue ones, you need to get a corresponding drum from the red side, because we only get 17 drums, not 34 drums. That's because you can use the drum from the red side. The drum for the blue arbor would be exactly the same, so there is no point having the same drum twice. That's why you get 2 handles. Let me show you. The drum goes in the red one this way. And the blue one the opposite way. If you are right-handed, you will hold the handles red or blue in your left hand and operate the crank with your right hand. The blue one, you will wind the mainspring anti-clockwise. And the red one clockwise. The slots are cut in the direction you will be winding the mainspring in, hence the barrel drum will be stable and cannot accidentally come loose. One thing I'd like to point out about the cranks. This is number 5 and this is number 6. The outer diameter of the barrel drum for the number 5 is 8.6 millimeters and the outer diameter of the barrel drum for the number 6 is 9.8 millimeters. If you look at the discs on the cranks, you will see that the disc on the number 5 overhangs. Can you see that? From what I can see and measure, they are exactly the same. The discs are 10 millimeters in diameter and the arbors are 2.98 millimeters in diameter. I have no way of measuring the hooks on the arbors, but they appear to be the same. This is throughout the set. 00 and 0 have the same cranks, 1 and 2 have the same cranks, and so on. The largest number 15 has the same arbor diameter as 13 and 14, but the disc is larger. See the spreadsheet in this video and listen to what I have to say about the measurements just before I show the spreadsheet. To clarify left hand and right hand, it doesn't mean it's intended for left-handed or right-handed people. Look at the direction of the spring in the barrels. By the way, these are old mainsprings, so don't pay any attention to how bad they look. They are purely for demonstration. This one goes anti-clockwise and this one goes clockwise. When you disassemble a barrel and you see the spring going anti-clockwise, stop, think red. You will need to use a red crank to wind the mainspring in. There is only one correct way the mainspring can go on the Arbour. I'll explain how it works, but first let me show you a close-up of the Arbour. The disc is made of steel. This part of the handle is also made of steel. We have some brass here. And the cap is also made of brass. The Arbour itself is made of steel. And if you look carefully, you will see that the center of the Arbour is different color. It looks like brass. I'll use greater macro so you can see it better. I'll also move the Arbour a little for you to see it in different light. This is the hook. The hook will engage with the hole in the mainspring and will wind the mainspring into the barrel drum. In this case, when you look at the direction of the hook, to get a bite into the hole in the mainspring, you will need to turn the crank anti-clockwise. Don't let me confuse you. When the crank is in the barrel drum and you are holding the handle with your left hand, everything is turned by 90 degrees to the right and you will be winding it clockwise. This is the hook on the blue crank. You will need to wind it in the opposite direction for the hook to get a bite. The hook on the Arbour needs to engage with the hole in the mainspring and wind it forward. In this case, the hook needs to push this way. When the barrel was disassembled, the mainspring was turning anti-clockwise. We must use the red crank. Now look at the hook, which direction it's pointing. You can only turn the crank anti-clockwise for the hook to engage with the mainspring. This is the correct way. However, if you turn the crank upside down and inserted the Arbour this way, now look at the hook. For the hook to engage now, you'd have to turn the crank clockwise and that would not work. Of course, if you turn the mainspring upside down, then you would have to insert the Arbour from the top. If you think about it logically, it's impossible to get it wrong. The handles are made out of brass. We get the slots cut out in the direction we will be winding the mainspring in. This is the plunger, also made out of brass. We get nice knurling on the handle to get a good grip. This is the left-handed blue one, and as you can see, the blue paint stays on my finger. I wouldn't have expected that from Bergeon. Now let's have a closer look at the barrel drum. It's made out of brass. This is the slot for the mainspring. This part that goes into the slot in the handle is made out of steel. And the plunger is also made out of steel. Before I show you my measurements, let me show you this. If you remove this section, Bergeon gives you measurements here. It reveals a chart for this set of winders. It's exactly the same as what you can see on the top of the box. This indicates that the measurements given here refer to the inner diameter of the barrel drum. That is not the case. For example, number 7, the measurement of the outer diameter is 10.8 mm, not the measurement of the inner diameter. Now let me show you what I measured. I'll use number 7 I just pointed out. I've measured all arbors and winders to give you measurements as accurate as possible. Measuring the outer diameter is very easy. You can't go wrong. This is number 7 and the outer diameter of the arbor is 3.48 mm. The outer diameter of the barrel drum is 10.8 mm. The inner diameter is a little more difficult to measure. You need to be at the widest section of the diameter, which is easier said than done. So the inner diameters will not be accurate to 100th of a millimeter, but will be very close. As an example, number 3 arbor, I measured 2.49 millimeters, and the hole in the plunger also 2.49 millimeters. If these measurements were exact, the arbor would jam in the plunger. The inner diameter of the hole in the plunger is no doubt larger than 2.49 millimeters, but that's what I was able to measure, and I'd rather give you the measurements I can take rather than make it up. It does give you a good idea about the tolerances. I've measured the diameter of each arbor, the disc, the length of the arbor, the outer diameter, the inner diameter, the thickness of the wall, the depth of the barrel drum, and the diameter of the hole in the plunger. Now let's have a look at the measurements. I hope it's clear and you will find it helpful if you are purchasing the winders separately. Perhaps the one column that may not be clear is the last column labeled next up. For example, if you look at number 4, can you insert the winder number 4 into winder number 5? No, 7.82 will not fit into 7.79. Now look at number 5. Can you insert it into number 6? Yes, 8.6 will fit into 8.99. You may notice some discrepancies here. Look at number 3. 7.1 fits 7.09. As I mentioned before, the inner diameters are difficult to measure. It will be larger than 7.09, but that's what I was able to measure. The number 2 and number 3 are both very tight fit. Brass is a soft material and these sets could vary from set to set by 100 of a millimeter here and there, and I wouldn't rely on it that these two will fit in every set. Why would you want to insert one winder into another? Carry on watching. I'm about to show you 4 different options if the fit of the winders and arbors is not ideal, and one of the options requires to fit the smaller winder into the winder next size up. If you look at the wall, you will see that there is a step towards the top. Ideally, the winder should sit on that. By the way, I won't be using finger cuts. The spring will never be used in a watch, it's purely for demonstration. I generally start with locating the correct size winder. This is number 10. As you can see, it's small. It freely moves inside the barrel. Now let's try number 11. And that fits beautifully. It's a perfect fit. Now let's try Arbour number 11. Unfortunately, it's too large. Let's try next size down, number 10. That's a perfect fit. So we have winder number 11 that fits very well in the barrel, and Arbour number 10 that fits well on the mainspring. What are our options? We have several and none of them are ideal. Let's have a look at the first option. Option number 1. The Arbour number 11 will fit with a little persuasion. As I'm inserting the Arbour into the mainspring, I'm making sure that the hook on the Arbour is aligned with the hole in the mainspring. I'm using brass tweezers to slide the mainspring down the Arbour. That's now seated well and we can insert the Arbour with the mainspring into the winder. The winder is also number 11. We'll insert the mainspring into the slot and now we can wind the mainspring in clockwise. I'm going to leave a little bit of the mainspring out and tuck it in with tweezers. It's actually very easy to do, but the camera is where my head should be, so I'm struggling here, and with all the other options I'm about to show you. The spring is in, now we need to release the tension by unwinding it anti-clockwise. You will feel it when there is no tension. When the tension is released, we need to remove the Arbour. This needs to be done slowly and gently. I'll lift the crank just a little to get enough space to insert brass tweezers there. The hook is engaged in the hole in the mainspring, and by applying downwards pressure on the mainspring, we will disengage the hook from the mainspring. The tweezers need to keep the mainspring down in the winder throughout the whole operation until the Arbour is completely separated from the mainspring. Care is required here. You could kink the mainspring if you lift it too high, and the mainspring could also come out from the winder. The spring can now be inserted into the barrel. Sit the winder on the barrel and press the plunger. Option number 2. Arbour number size 10. Again, I check the position of the hook and the hole in the mainspring, and I'm inserting the Arbour in the mainspring so the hook will be engaged with the hole. The winder is also size number 10. Make sure that the spring goes in the slot, and now it can be wound in clockwise. I'll use my tweezers to help the spring to go in. And now the tension can be released. I'll lift the crank slightly and insert my tweezers to disengage the hook from the mainspring. This one is easier to remove because the diameter of the Arbour is smaller, hence the mainspring is not gripping the Arbour as tightly as it did with Arbour number 11. Now the mainspring can be inserted into the barrel. Option number 3. I'll use Arbour number 10. I'll slide the spring down the Arbour. This time I'll use winder number 11, one size larger than the Arbour. Insert the spring into the slot. And as you can see that this goes inside the winder rather than sitting on the top. There is a lot of movement. But let's proceed and wind the mainspring in. It's not just the disc, also the arbor. The diameter of the arbor is 3.98 mm and the hole in the plunger is 4.5 mm. 0.5 mm doesn't sound a lot, but it does make a lot of difference. It immediately feels very unstable. This is not comfortable. There is a big difference between using the same size winders and arbors and using an arbor that is one size smaller than the winder. The spring needs to be inserted as with previous cases. And now it needs to be unwound. Winding it in is tricky, but removing the arbor from the mainspring is a lot more difficult. The disc is in the winder and there is a lot of movement because the hole is considerably larger than the arbor. 0.5 mm in watchmaking terms is a lot. It feels very unstable. The crank is moving from side to side, but with a lot of care it is manageable. Now we can insert the mainspring in the ball. Option number 4. This time I'm going to use the blue winder number 10 and wind it in the opposite way, anti-clockwise. As always, make sure that the hole in the mainspring is aligned with the hook on the arbor and use brass tweezers. The blue handle is required. The slot in the handle is cut out the opposite way because the mainspring will need to be wound in anti-clockwise. I'm using winder number 10 here. Insert the spring into the slot and it's the same case as the previous options, except the mainspring is wound in the opposite way. I can barely see here, I'm in such a twisted position because of the camera being in the way. Honestly, it's really not that difficult to insert the spring in as it looks. Okay, that's finally in. To release the tension from the mainspring, it needs to be unwound clockwise. When you stop feeling the tension, it's good to go and the arbor can be removed from the mainspring. Now we have the mainspring wound in, but the wrong way. What we need now is the right hand winder number 11 inserted in the handle. We have the blue one number 10 on the left and the red one number 11 on the right. Now insert number 10 into number 11 and press the plunger as if you were inserting it into a barrel. There you go. The mainspring is now in the correct way and all we need to do now is to insert it into the barrel. The last column labeled next up in the spreadsheet refers to this method. When you see yes in the cell, it means you can insert the winder into the winder one size up. Just like in this case, we inserted number 10 into number 11. None of the options you've just seen are ideal. In an ideal world, you'd use, for example, winder number 7 that fits the barrel perfectly and arbor number 7 that also fits the mainspring perfectly. More often than not, you'll be presented with cases where the fit is not perfect and you'll have to get around it. Of course, you could buy a new mainspring. You could also try the caliber specific winders, but we're talking about options with this set of mainspring winders. I'm not here to tell you what your best option is. I'm simply showing you what your options are and you will need to decide how you are going to handle each case. It would have been nice if we had in-between sizes, but what in-between sizes? Crank number 10 with a larger disc and a winder number 11 with a smaller hole to fit the arbor number 10? Or crank number 11 and winder number 10 with a larger hole to fit the crank number 11? That's already 2 in-between sizes. The set is expensive as it is, and introducing further variations would make the cost of the set astronomical. Perhaps additional sizes to purchase separately, at least for the more common sizes, would be nice. But there is no such option. This set is as comprehensive as it gets. So what are your options when it comes to purchasing mainspring winders? The truth is, you don't really have many. You could look on eBay for vintage mainspring winders, but none of the sets will be as comprehensive as this one, and I don't think you will find any that are left-handed, the blue ones. You could also purchase mainspring winders produced in China, but as of 2021, the arbors are made of brass and so are the hooks on the arbors. There is a lot of power in the mainsprings, and trying to wind the mainspring in with a brass hook calls for a disaster. The Chinese sets are cheap for a good reason. My guess is that sooner or later they will realize the issue and will start producing them with a steel arbor and a hook. And if they do, you're in luck and will be able to purchase mainspring winders that are considerably cheaper than the Swiss ones. However, at this moment I would disregard Chinese-made winders because you will never know when they are going to fail. Will they ever produce a generic set like this one, or will they carry on producing caliber-specific winders only? Who knows, they will only be predictions, so let's stick to what we have, and that's this set, also the Bergeon 5355, which is a set of 7 left and right-handed mainspring winders from number 0 to number 6. The Bergeon 2795 ETA, which is a set of 12 caliber specific winders, and vintage winders such as K&D can be obtained from eBay. This set does not fit every single mainspring perfectly, but it is the most comprehensive set you can currently purchase and it does the job very well. The brass is in the right places, the steel is in the right places, the winders fit well into the handles, the arbors fit into the holes in the winders perfectly. In all honesty, I do not have a bad thing to say about this set. You can purchase the set or buy each winder separately as you need them. Perhaps purchasing them separately may be a wiser option if you are not going to work on very small watches or pocket watches and you don't need the smallest and largest winders. If you are working on movements of various sizes, it will be cheaper for you to purchase the whole set rather than buying the winders separately, and you will have them all together in a box arranged nicely so you can find the winder you need very easily rather than going through your drawer full of winders all over the place. I hope you enjoyed this video, found it helpful, and if you did, give it thumbs up and check out my other videos.